right, I am back with another Destiny 2 video. This expanding on an article that was inspired by a meme that I posted on Twitter yesterday, which is I'll put it up here, me saying that I miss crafting via the invincible Omni-Man. So, I have been one of crafting's biggest opponents like forever, and or I've said many times, told Bungie that I think it's one of the biggest loot-based mistakes they had made. Do I actually miss crafting? Not really, no. I like making memes, but this is more an issue about how the tier system has kind of gone off the rails rather than like, oh my god, crafting is so good and we miss it, and we should have it again. They're both bad for different reasons. I don't know which is worse per se, but the way the tier system is going, it could be that direction. There are solutions between these two that I think Bungie never utilized enough, and I'll go into what those are. But also, a big problem is that it's kind of too late to go back or change things too much in any specific way. To reiterate what I've always said, the issue with crafting has been it made the loot chase close to nothing when there were activities where crafting was involved. All crafting would be from that point onward was just trying to get usually five red borders of a specific weapon. Once you had those, you could extract them, you would craft the weapon, and then used to have to actually kill things with it, and then you just had to spam materials eventually to get to whatever perks you wanted to unlock. And then you would have your preferred god roll of anything. This resulted in two ways of farming, which was just randomly getting shit, but in some activities, literally you'd build up these engrams and then you just spam, turn them in until every one out of every 10 or 15 or 20 or whatever it was would be the red bar. And you'd be like, yo, hallelujah, amazing, I can make it now. Eventually people thought that even that was too RNG based, so Bungie eventually did these things where if you unlocked some upgrade or something, you could log in every week and get 1 to 2 red borders for free. And if you were playing any amount of time, it was kind of hard to not end up crafting at least the seasonal weapons. Raids you could craft. People went back and forth on whether that was good or not. Some people think raid weapons should be more elite and you shouldn't be able to craft god rolls. Other people said that was motivating to run the raid until you got all the things. I don't know. I didn't like that because the idea of chasing 5 red borders per gun is just so dull, and you would just trash literally everything that was not a red border. You didn't even have to look at the rolls because you know you're going to get those borders eventually, so why bother? Even if it's the roll you want, why bother keeping it? Because you can't get enhanced perks on it. Bungie changed that at the very end that you could start getting enhanced perks on normal drops, but that was all kind of thrown out the window, as was crafting when the new tier system came along. The tier system, good in theory. I think it actually works pretty decently for armor, at least the tier part. The stat distribution part's kind of another story in terms of storing all these things. But in terms of weapons, the idea was you would go through various power levels, and then once you hit a threshold, you would pretty much only get tiers of a specific level. And then for, very rarely you would get a pinnacle one that was one level above. In various events, they started giving you automatically one level above. And that's when I started seeing wait, this isn't going to really end so well. Solstice was the first, quote, generosity event where, you'd be getting tier 4 stuff all along. And then suddenly it's no longer 1 in 20 drops is a tier 5. It's 2 or 3 drops, or 1, 2 or 3 drops every single run that was a tier 5 of Solstice armor or Solstice weapons. And I'm like, okay, well, this is good. It's been a struggle to level, and, this is a nice little reprieve. But the more you went up, once I hit, quote, the mountaintop, which is 450, I didn't hit 450 when it was hard. I hit 450 when it was easy, once they changed everything. Once you hit 450 alone, you get tier 5 drops all the time. Outside of just literal world drops, any activity completion drop, any bonus engram drop now, pretty much anything that rewards you a drop is tier 5. And This is just a system that has not made a chase really anything now, because if you're getting tier 5 weapons from whatever activity, it's essentially 9 rolls per drop, because you have 3 columns each in every drop. It's not like sometimes, it's literally everything you ever get for weapons. You'll have 9 potential perk combinations there. And then, you can get a handful of drops of one weapon, and you will have almost every role you could ever possibly want, like much less your one god roll. Like it's very easy to just find something that is not just acceptable but also really good. Tier 5 has also been hilariously power crept. Like, it is the most power crept thing I can even think of in terms of how weapons go. It's not just the automatic 6 perks, or 6, rows of 3. It's the fact that everything is enhanced. It's not just like, oh, you can do enhanced perks with crafting. No, it is literally every barrel, every magazine, everything except the origin trait, I think. Even the mods are enhanced when you put those in. So its stats are just, way above pretty much everything else you would have before. Like, you can still use other weapons and stuff, but tier 5s, and then if you max them out, they get even more stats. It's just, I can't even imagine what power creep would be besides this. So this has kind of destroyed the loot chase in another way, where this reminds me of like the Borderlands era of a stupid amount of legendaries, to the point where everyone was like, okay, this is too many legendaries, and like farming isn't really even, you got to sift through 10 legendary drops a boss to see if it's one you want. But this doesn't even have like the insanely rare perk combination or stat combination that Borderlands did. It's all like, here's enhanced everything, here's every roll you can get like very quickly. That's it. And so going all the way in the other direction, it was, the leveling system to get here was a pain and exhausting, but like the quote reward for getting there, just it feels like a tidal wave of good loot, to the point of like, well, why am I even playing anymore? Like, this event currently is like, oh, you can focus to get the spread shot hand cannon, which we've already like been able to get a few times, and like I have gotten 15 of these, and I've deleted almost all of them. Like, you would think a tier 5 weapon is something you would like treasure and save, but it is definitely not. It is in a very weird place, and I don't know how kind of you claw back from here, because it would kind of involve going in reverse. There were different solutions to both of these problems, at least at the time. There is one, I think, for the tier system now. But what I always said with crafting, back then, my ideal farming system was the way Into the Light gave us loot. You were able to focus a specific thing, so you would at least lean toward getting that thing. We do have focusing in a lot more areas now, which is good. But then past that, you would get a lot of loot. Part of the problem with the random roll system was just scarcity of loot, to the point where it was like stupid. The worst one for this ever was what dungeon farming ended up being, where you'd be trying to get a roll of a weapon. You would do an encounter. It was a 50-50 chance whether you even get a weapon. It was a 1 out of 3 chance whether you get the weapon you want. And then it's a 1 out of whatever ton chance to get the actual roll you want. And that took RNG too far. And people are like, well, why don't I do that? Crafting's better than that. Like, yeah, crafting is better than that. But what Into the Light did is they give you a ton of loot, both when you're playing the activity and then, saving up currency to put into a chest. And then they had drops that actually felt cool, like shiny double enhanced perk things, which actually were like, oh, wow, like that's really cool. I got one of these things. And you would have a somewhat better chance of getting the god roll you wanted because of the double perks. So that seemed like something that was still a loot chase, but not as like just very extremely boring as just spamming engrams for red borders, or throwing literally everything away except red borders because of crafting. That seemed like a better system to me, and that's one I wanted to see in the rest of the game. That almost never really happened, maybe toward the end where they moved away from crafting, but it still wasn't quite as good as that was. So we never quite got back there. the solution for the tier system, I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to doing that, but if we're sticking with the whole tier thing, it's too many tiers. Like 5 tiers is too many. We don't need that many tiers. And now it's being crunched into essentially 3 tiers because Bungie is moving up everyone's power level to like 300 minimum. So tier 1 and tier 2 should not really even exist in theory. And then, so that leaves, 3, 4, and 5. My opinion is that tier should have essentially stopped at tier 4 in terms of loot that you get regularly. And what should have happened is that a tier 5 was something that was either very rare or something you had to compete like very ultra high tier pinnacle activities for one, like somewhat similar to how adepts work, but these are even way better than adepts. When you were under 450, this and before all these recent buffs, that is kind of how it worked, where there was like a pity timer where every 20 runs you definitely get at least one tier 5. The problem there became that that drop was the only thing to increase your power, and like Bungie fixed that eventually, but the overall point of tier 5s being rare across a litany of activities, like in a way that it's not just like spamming 20, solo ops until you get one, in a way that is like integrated in a way that feels fair, in a way that makes you want to play a lot of things. If they made tier 5s actually rare, and when you got one of those drops with the most power crept slate of everything of all time, that would have really felt special. And there's just it's not like that. And the problem now is like, what do you do? Like everyone who hits 450 is going to have just infinite tier 5s. My entire inventory is tier 5s. I'm throwing all of them in my vault. Like, it's the only loot that exists now, at my level, and it's very easy to level now. So if people care at all, they can get there really easily. And since power's not being reset in Renegades, you're going to log in and be getting tier 4s or tier 5s from day one, which, great. But like, again, I don't think this is a well-designed loot system. I do feel like I'm in the minority here. I posted this article and most people are saying, yes, crafting is better than the tier system. I don't think that's true. I still think crafting has more major issues. I just think they're easier to see and they were easier to fix. Whereas this, it's like once you start giving everyone tier 5s, you can't just reduce the drop rate by like 95% and expect everyone to like not bitch all the time to, they have 200 tier 5s and now they're only getting one every so often. But that's how I would have done the system in the first place, because there is nothing that rare now except shinies, and like shinies are fine, but like all tier 5s kind of have a shiny effect, and the actual shiny effect on tier 5s is often not even better than that. So I'm all for shinies. It's just kind of a weird way to do it, and I don't know if that's like a true motivator. What seems obvious is going to happen now is that Bungie is going to slowly bring back old loot and put it into the tier system. For the 5th time, we're redoing the weapon system, so that's going to happen again. But you kind of open Pandora's box here, and once you make it this easy to get tier 5s, which are the most power crept thing we've ever had, there's no path back that makes a whole lot of sense. Because it's, Borderlands took an entire new game to reduce their legendary drops and make them at least kind of rare again. Whereas here, I know the narrative, and the narrative would be like, I can't believe you made drop rates so bad. Like, you should be, attracting players, not repelling them. And like, I agree with that. But if you want like a functional game that is a looter shooter and not like a log in and automatically get a god roll a day and just stop farming for anything, you need to do something different. I know a lot of people want that. Like there's a big cohort of people that just don't want Destiny to be a looter shooter. They just want to get the thing pretty much automatically and then use it in activities. I guess that's just kind of a difference in motivation. I've never been able to extract, the loot chase of Destiny with my reason for playing Destiny. Because when you switch the reason for playing Destiny to like increasing your power, like look how much that sucked. And, if you're not chasing good loot, I guess you're playing for the love of the game, but in a game like this, I think you need some sort of motivator. And I don't think crafting did that. And now I don't think the tier system really does that either, because it just blows open the pinata once you hit, the top range of levels, and it's all you get forever. It's like, I like chocolate cake, but do I want to eat chocolate cake for every single meal? And, does that maintain its appeal? I would argue no. So, is crafting better in the tier system? Probably not. But the tier system is very, very problematic right now, and there's no easy fix because making more rarity is just going to piss everyone off. So, I don't know, whatever. I guess I'll just, stick with all my tier 5s. It's fine. They're good. They're good to play with, I guess. It's a very odd system now. And I don't think, the grind should be artificially drawn out. I just think it should be something that is fun to pursue and rewarding. So let me know what you think. I don't imagine this is going to be like the most popular, but yeah. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.